I need to say this up front. I didn't mean it literally. It was a moment of frustration, a slip during an argument, the kind of thing you say when you're trying to hurt someone just enough to win a fight, not enough to destroy everything. I wanted attention. I wanted him to stop being so clingy and insecure. I wanted to feel powerful for once, instead of constantly defending myself against his accusations. But I didn't expect him to act on it. I didn't expect the one sentence that had been sitting in the back of my mind for 3 years to be the sentence that shattered everything. Honestly, I only married you because your boss didn't want me. I thought he'd get angry. I thought he'd yell or slam a door or give me the silent treatment for a day. I thought we'd have a big fight and then make up like we always did. I didn't think he'd erase me from his life by sunrise. I didn't think I'd wake up the next morning to find all my belongings packed in boxes by the front door and my husband completely gone. But that's exactly what happened. And now I'm sitting in a studio apartment I can barely afford, trying to piece together how one sentence during one argument ended my entire marriage in less than 12 hours. Before we get into this mess, don't forget to like and subscribe. And hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Drop a comment below with your city or country. Now let's dive in. It started as a stupid petty fight, the kind we'd had a dozen times before, the kind that usually ended with both of us apologizing and moving on. We were at a work event, one of those networking happy hours that David's company throws every few months. Boring conversations with boring people about boring projects. The kind of event where everyone drinks cheap wine and pretends to be interested in each other's quarterly reports. I was talking to a few of his colleagues by the bar, just making small talk, being friendly, laughing at their mediocre attempts at humor because that's what you do at these things. And David was watching me from across the room with that look, that tight-jawed, narrow-eyed look that meant I was going to hear about this later. I knew that look well. I'd been seeing it more and more frequently over the past 6 months, every time we went out, every time I talked to another man, every time I smiled too brightly or laughed too loudly. It was exhausting. Sure enough, the moment we got in the car, he started. "You were flirting with them," he said, his hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly, his knuckles white. I was being polite, I corrected, already exhausted before the conversation even began. "There's a difference. You were laughing at everything they said, touching that guy's arm, leaning in too close when you talked." "I touched his arm once when he made a joke about his cat," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "That's called normal human interaction, David. That's what people do when they're having a conversation." "You do this every time," he said, his voice rising. "Every work event, every party, every time we're around other men. You flirt. You can't help yourself." And there it was, the same accusation he always made. The same insecurity that had been poisoning our relationship for months, maybe since the beginning, though I'd been too caught up to notice. "I don't flirt," I said through gritted teeth, feeling my anger build. "I'm friendly, I'm sociable, I'm not going to stand in the corner like a wallflower just because you're insecure." "I'm not insecure," he said defensively, which is what insecure people always say. "I just don't like watching my wife throw herself at other men." "Throw myself," I repeated, my voice getting louder. "Are you listening to yourself? I was having a conversation, a normal, professional conversation, and you're acting like I was trying to go home with them." "You're always too friendly," he insisted, taking a turn too sharply. "You smile too much. You laugh too loud. You stand too close. It's embarrassing." "What's embarrassing is having a husband who treats me like I'm his property," I snapped. "I'm allowed to talk to people, David. I'm allowed to exist in social situations without you monitoring every interaction like some kind of jealous stalker." That was harsh. I knew it was harsh even as I said it, but I was so tired of defending my basic human interactions, so tired of being made to feel guilty for being friendly. We went back and forth like this for the entire drive home, him accusing me of flirting, me defending my completely normal behavior. both of us getting angrier with each exchange. I could feel it escalating, could feel us both losing control, could feel the argument spiraling into territory we'd never quite reached before. And part of me wanted that. Part of me wanted to push it further, to finally have the fight that would either fix things or break them completely. By the time we got home, I was furious, not just about this argument, but about all the arguments before it. All the times he'd made me feel guilty for being friendly. All the times he'd accused me of things I hadn't done. I was tired of defending myself, tired of his jealousy, tired of feeling like I had to walk on eggshells. And underneath all that tiredness was something else, something I'd been pushing down for 3 years, something I'd promised myself I'd never acknowledge. The truth about how we got together. The truth about why I'd said yes when he asked me out. The truth that had been sitting in the back of my mind like a time bomb, waiting for the right moment to explode. And in my anger, in my desperate need to hurt him, the way he'd been hurting me with his constant accusations, I decided that moment was now. "You do this every time," he said, his voice rising. "Every work event, every party, every time we're around other men, you flirt. You can't help yourself." And there it was, the same accusation he always made, the same insecurity that had been poisoning our relationship for months. "I don't flirt," I said through gritted teeth. "I'm friendly. I'm sociable. I'm not going to stand in the corner like a wallflower just because you're insecure." "I'm not insecure," he said defensively. "I just don't like watching my wife throw herself at other men." "Throw myself," I repeated, my voice getting louder. "Are you listening to yourself? I was having a conversation, a normal, professional conversation, and you're acting like I was trying to go home with them." "You're always too friendly," he insisted. "You smile too much. You laugh too loud. You stand too close. It's embarrassing." "What's embarrassing is having a husband who treats me like I'm his property," I snapped. "I'm allowed to talk to people, David. I'm allowed to exist in social situations without you monitoring every interaction." We went back and forth like this for the entire drive home. Him accusing me of flirting, me defending my completely normal behavior, both of us getting angrier and angrier. By the time we got home, I was furious, not just about this argument, but about all the arguments before it, all the times he'd made me feel guilty for being friendly, all the times he'd accused me of things I hadn't done. I was tired of defending myself, tired of his jealousy, tired of feeling like I had to walk on eggshells around him, and I wanted to hurt him. I wanted him to feel as frustrated and powerless as he made me feel with his constant suspicion. So when we got inside and he was still going on about how inappropriate I'd been, I reached for the cruelest weapon I had, the truth I'd been keeping secret for 3 years. "You know what your problem is?" I said, my voice cold. "You're insecure because you know you weren't my first choice." He stopped mid-sentence. "What?" "You heard me," I said, feeling the adrenaline surge through my body, the power of finally saying the thing I'd been holding back. "You weren't my first choice. You were my backup plan." "What are you talking about?" he asked, but I could see the fear creeping into his eyes. Like part of him already knew what I was about to say. And I said it. I said the one thing that would destroy everything. "I tried to date your boss first, before you and I even got together. I asked him out, and he said no, and then I settled for you." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched his face change, watched him process what I'd just told him, watched the hurt and shock and realization wash over him in waves. "So honestly," I continued, unable to stop now that I'd started, "I only married you because your boss didn't want me. You were the consolation prize." The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. David didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't throw anything or slam doors or do any of the dramatic things I'd been bracing myself for. He just froze. His face went completely blank. His eyes became hollow, distant, like he was looking at me but not seeing me anymore. He was processing, working through what I'd just told him, recalibrating his entire understanding of our relationship. And I stood there, my heart pounding, realizing I'd just detonated a bomb I couldn't defuse. "David," I started, my voice uncertain now. "I didn't mean—" "Thanks for the honesty," he said quietly. His voice was so calm, so eerily, unnaturally calm. That scared me more than if he'd been screaming. "Can we talk about this?" I asked. "No," he said simply. He walked past me toward the bedroom. I followed him, trying to explain, trying to take it back. "I was angry," I said. "I just said it to hurt you. It's not—" "Go to bed," he interrupted, his voice still that terrible calm. "We'll deal with this tomorrow." He turned off the lights and got into bed, turning his back to me. I stood there in the dark, wanting to say more, wanting to fix this, but not knowing how. Eventually, I got into bed too, lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing, wondering what tomorrow would bring. I thought the silence meant we'd talk in the morning. I thought he was just too angry to have a rational conversation and needed time to cool down. I thought we'd wake up, have a difficult discussion, maybe go to counseling, and work through this like adults. I was very, very wrong. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows and an empty bed beside me. David's side was cold. He'd clearly been gone for hours. I checked my phone. 7:30 in the morning. He usually didn't leave for work until 8. Maybe he'd gone for a run, I thought, or to get coffee. Maybe he needed space to think. I got out of bed and walked toward the bathroom, my mind still foggy with sleep and dread about the conversation we'd need to have. Then I walked into the living room and my heart stopped. Boxes. Everywhere. My clothes, neatly folded in moving boxes. My shoes, organized by pairs. My makeup and toiletries, packed in separate bags. My laptop, my chargers, my books, my everything. My entire life, carefully and methodically packed. Everything that was mine had been removed from our shared space and placed in boxes near the front door. Everything except my wedding ring. I walked into the kitchen on shaky legs and found it sitting on the table. My wedding ring, the one he'd proposed with 3 years ago, the one I'd worn every day since. It was sitting on top of a piece of paper. With trembling hands, I picked up the paper and read it. It was a bank transfer confirmation. David had moved money from our joint account into his personal account, not all of it. He'd left exactly half, down to the penny. He'd calculated our joint assets and taken exactly his share. My wedding ring sat on top of this financial division, like a final statement. I stood there, staring at the ring, at the boxes, at the evidence that my husband had spent the entire night packing up my life while I slept. When had he done this? How long had it taken? Had he been packing while I was sleeping just feet away? The precision of it was chilling. The calm, methodical way he'd separated my belongings from his. The careful calculation of our finances. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment decision. This was planned, executed, final. I was still standing in the kitchen, holding my wedding ring, when I noticed something else on the table. A sticky note. Small. Yellow. Stuck to one of the boxes. I walked over and peeled it off with shaking fingers. In David's neat handwriting it said, "You should have waited for his answer." That was it. No long explanation. No emotional outpouring. No final argument. Just one sentence that cut deeper than anything else he could have said. Because it proved he understood exactly what I'd told him. He wasn't confused or misinterpreting. He knew exactly what I'd meant. I'd told him I only married him because his boss rejected me. I'd told him he was my second choice, my backup plan, and his response was to pack my entire life and remove me from his. I sank into a chair, still holding the sticky note, and that's when it really hit me. He wasn't coming back. There wasn't going to be a conversation. There wasn't going to be a chance to explain or apologize or take it back. He was done. Completely. Utterly. Finally done. I'd said the unforgivable thing, and he'd responded with the unforgivable action. erasing me from his life while I slept. I sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, staring at the boxes, trying to process what was happening. Then my phone buzzed, a text message from a number I didn't have saved but recognized immediately. David's boss, the man I'd asked out 3 years ago, the man who'd politely declined, the man I'd never told David about. Until last night. My hands were shaking as I opened the message. "He told me what you said. Please don't contact me again." I read it 3 times, each reading making my stomach sink lower. David had told him, had actually reached out to his boss, probably in the middle of the night while packing my things, and told him what I'd said. Why would he do that? To verify my story? To humiliate me? To make sure everyone knew the truth? The message was clear. I was not to contact this man. Not for work networking. Not for anything. I was being cut off from that entire professional circle. Because David had made sure his boss knew exactly why I'd been friendly at work events, why I'd struck up conversations, why I'd been, in David's words, too friendly. It wasn't networking, it wasn't professional development, it was me, still orbiting around a rejection from 3 years ago. At least, that's what it would look like now. That's what David had made it look like by telling his boss. And the worst part, there was some truth to it. Not that I'd been pursuing him for 3 years. I hadn't. I'd genuinely moved on. But I had asked him out first. I had been rejected. And I had started dating David a few months later. Those facts existed. And now David's boss knew them, and probably thought I'd been using David to stay close to him. Which I hadn't. I really hadn't. But who would believe that now? I waited all day for David to come home, to give me a chance to explain, to let me defend myself or apologize or something. But he didn't come home. Not at 6 when he usually got off work. Not at 7, not at 8. By 9 I started calling him. 5 times. 10 times, 20 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. I texted him, dozens of messages ranging from angry to apologetic to desperate. "You can't just pack my stuff and disappear. We need to talk about this. I'm sorry, I was angry. I didn't mean it. Please come home. Where am I supposed to go? Answer your phone." None of them were delivered. The messages showed as sent but not read. He'd blocked me. My husband had blocked my number. I tried calling from a different phone, a friend's phone. He answered on the first ring. "David," I started. "Don't call me from other numbers," he said calmly. "I'll get a restraining order if I have to." "You can't just kick me out," I said, my voice rising with panic. "This is my home too." "Check your email," he said. "You'll find the lease was only in my name. You were never on it. Which means I can ask you to leave whenever I want." My blood ran cold. "You planned this. You've been planning this." "No," he said. "I packed last night, after you told me the truth about our entire relationship. But the lease thing, that was always true. You just never bothered to check." "David, please." "You have until tomorrow morning to get your things out," he interrupted. "After that, I'm having them donated. Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't know," he said, his voice still that terrible calm. "Maybe to the person you actually wanted to be with." "Oh wait, he doesn't want you either." The words hit like a physical blow. "That's cruel," I whispered. "Is it?" he asked. "More cruel than finding out your wife only married you because someone better said no? More cruel than realizing your entire marriage was built on you being a consolation prize?" "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did," he said. "You meant exactly that. You were angry and you wanted to hurt me and you told the truth. The truth you've been hiding for 3 years. The truth that explains so much about our relationship. What does that mean?" "It means I finally understand why you never really seemed fully present," he said. "Why you always seemed like you were settling. Why you flirted with other men at work events. You were still looking for something better. Still hoping someone would choose you the way I did." "That's not true." "It is true," he interrupted again. And we both know it. The only difference is that now I know it too. There was a pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. "Tomorrow morning," he said finally. "Everything better be gone." Then he hung up, and I stood there with someone else's phone in my hand, realizing I'd destroyed my marriage and had nowhere to go. I managed to find a studio apartment that would let me move in immediately. It was expensive, barely affordable, and about a tenth of the size of the place I'd shared with David, but it was somewhere to put my boxes. I hired movers to come get my things the next morning. I wasn't going to wait around for David to come home and watch him dismiss me with that calm, dead look in his eyes. The movers were loading the last box when David's car pulled up. My heart jumped. Maybe we'd have one more conversation. Maybe I'd have one more chance to explain. He got out of the car, looked at me standing by the moving truck, and walked past me without a word. "David," I called after him. He stopped, but didn't turn around. "Can we please talk about this?" "No," he said simply. "I'm sorry," I said, tears streaming down my face now. "I'm so sorry. I was angry and I said something horrible, but I didn't mean it. Not really. I love you. I chose you. I married you." He finally turned around, and the look on his face made me wish he hadn't. "You didn't choose me," he said quietly. "You settled for me. There's a difference. That's not fair." "You know what's not fair?" he asked, his voice rising slightly for the first time. "Building a life with someone who sees you as their backup plan, loving someone who only loves you because their first choice wasn't available. That's what's not fair. I do love you. Second choices don't get first chances," he said, cutting me off. The words hung in the air between us. "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew. "It means you had 3 years to be honest with me," he said. 3 years to tell me the truth about how we got together. 3 years to make me feel like I was your choice, not your consolation prize. And you didn't. You spent 3 years lying to me, making me think our relationship was real when it was just... What? Me being available when the person you actually wanted wasn't. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, he said. And the only reason I know now is because you got angry during a fight and decided to use it as a weapon. That's who you are. Someone who'd weaponize the truth to win an argument. He turned back toward the house. "Be gone before I get back," he said over his shoulder. "And don't contact me again." Then he walked inside and closed the door. I stood there, tears running down my face, watching the movers load the last of my belongings. Within 5 minutes, they were done. My entire life packed into a truck headed for a studio apartment I could barely afford. I got in my car and followed the truck, looking back one more time at the house I'd shared with David. The house where I'd been happy, even if he thought I'd been settling. The house I'd just lost because I couldn't keep my mouth shut during an argument. Sitting in the aftermath. I'm writing this from my new apartment 2 weeks later. It's small and depressing, and nothing like the life I had before. One room serves as bedroom, living room, and dining room. The kitchen is barely big enough to turn around in. The bathroom has mold in the corners that I haven't had the energy to clean. The walls are thin enough that I can hear my neighbors arguing at all hours. It's all I can afford on my single income. All I can manage now that I don't have David's salary supplementing mine. David hasn't responded to any of my messages. I'm still blocked on his phone, his social media, everything. I've tried everything to reach him, everything to explain, everything to apologize. The first few days, I sent dozens of messages from different numbers, from friends' phones, from work phones, variations on the same desperate theme. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Please talk to me. We can fix this." None of them were answered. I showed up at his work once. The security guard stopped me in the lobby and told me Mr. Davis had left instructions that I wasn't to be allowed up, that if I tried again, they'd call the police. My own husband had me banned from his workplace like I was some kind of threat. I tried waiting outside the building, hoping to catch him leaving. He must have seen me from a window, because he never came out. 3 hours I stood there, and he never appeared. Later, a colleague texted me. He left through the back entrance. Stop harassing him. Harassing him. That's what trying to save my marriage had become. His friends won't talk to me. His family certainly won't talk to me. I tried reaching out to his sister, hoping she might mediate or at least tell me how he's doing. She sent back one message. You broke his heart. Leave him alone. I tried one more time with his mother, who'd always been kind to me, who'd welcomed me into the family, who'd called me daughter. She answered the phone, listened to me cry and apologize for about 30 seconds, then said quietly, You used my son as a backup plan. I can't forgive that. And hung up. His best friend, Marcus, who'd been at our wedding, who'd given a speech about how perfect we were together, sent me a single text when I reached out. What you did was unforgivable. Don't contact me again. One by one, everyone in his life has cut me off. Not because he asked them to, but because they chose to. Because what I did was so beyond the pale that they can't stand to be associated with me. Everyone in his life knows now. He told them all what I said, what I'd done, how I'd really felt all along. And they've all chosen him. As they should, because I'm the villain of this story. I can see that now. Not because I asked his boss out first. That happened before David and I were together. Dating someone and getting rejected isn't a crime. The crime is that I kept it secret, that I let him build a life with me without knowing the full truth, that I weaponized that truth when I was angry. The crime is that I made him feel like a second choice, like a consolation prize, like someone I settled for because I couldn't have better. Even if that wasn't entirely true, even if I did grow to love him genuinely over our 3 years together, the fact that I said it means some part of me believed it. And he heard that part. That's what he can't forgive. I keep replaying that night in my head. The argument, the escalation, the moment I decided to hurt him with the truth. Why did I say it? What did I think would happen? I wanted to win the argument. I wanted to make him feel as powerless as his constant accusations made me feel. I wanted to prove I had value, that other men had wanted me, that he should be grateful I chose him. But in proving that, I showed him I'd never really chosen him at all. I'd chosen him by default, by elimination, because my first choice wasn't available. And no one wants to be loved like that. I've been going through our shared photos on my phone, deleting them one by one because looking at them hurts too much. Our wedding day, both of us smiling, happy, in love. Or at least, he was in love. I was, satisfied, content, settling, our honeymoon in Greece, his arm around me on the beach, both of us sunburned and laughing, our first apartment together. The day we moved in, surrounded by boxes, eating pizza on the floor because we hadn't unpacked the furniture yet. Last Christmas, him surprising me with the necklace I'd been wanting, me surprising him with concert tickets to see his favorite band. Were any of those moments real? Or was I just going through the motions the whole time, secretly comparing him to someone else? I want to believe they were real. I want to believe I genuinely loved him, that our relationship was authentic, that I wasn't just settling. But if that's true, why did I keep the secret about his boss? Why did I never tell him the full truth about how we got together? Because I was ashamed. Ashamed that I'd been rejected. Ashamed that David had been my second choice. Ashamed that I'd settled for him instead of landing someone more impressive. And that shame shaped our entire relationship in ways I'm only now beginning to understand. People keep asking me what I've learned from this, what I'd do differently if I could go back. Friends who still talk to me. Co-workers who heard through the grapevine. My own mother, who's disappointed but trying to be supportive. I'd keep my mouth shut. Obviously, I'd never tell him about asking his boss out. I'd take that secret to my grave where it belonged. I'd appreciate what I had instead of thinking about what I didn't have. I'd focus on the relationship I was in instead of the one I'd wanted 3 years ago. But more than that, I'd examine why I kept that secret in the first place. Because the truth is, it wasn't just about sparing his feelings. It was about hiding something I was ashamed of. I was ashamed that I'd been rejected, ashamed that David had been my second choice, ashamed that I'd settled for him instead of landing someone more impressive. And that shame shaped our entire relationship in ways I couldn't see at the time. It's why I flirted at work events, to prove to myself I was still desirable, to prove that other men still wanted me, even if the one I'd initially wanted hadn't. It's why I got defensive when he called me out, because his accusations hit too close to the truth. He could sense that I was seeking validation from other men, even if he didn't know why. It's why I never fully committed, because part of me was always wondering if I'd made the right choice, always comparing David to some imaginary version of what my life could have been if his boss had said yes. David sensed all of this. He felt it, even if he didn't know the specific reason. That's why he was jealous, why he accused me of flirting, why he never felt secure in our relationship, why he watched me at work events with that tight-jawed expression. He could feel me holding back. He could sense that I wasn't fully present. He could tell that some part of me was always looking elsewhere. He just didn't know why. And when I finally told him why, it confirmed his worst fears. His wife had never been fully his. She'd always been settling, always been comparing him to someone else, always been wondering if she could do better. No wonder he packed my things and erased me from his life. What else could he do? Stay married to someone who saw him as a backup plan, someone who'd kept such a fundamental secret about how their relationship started, someone who'd weaponized that secret during an argument. I destroyed my marriage with one sentence during one argument. But really, I destroyed it over 3 years of keeping a secret that poisoned everything. I should have told him early on, before we got serious, before he proposed, before we built a life together. I should have said, full disclosure, I asked your boss out once and he said no. That's how I ended up at that coffee shop where we met. Is that going to be a problem? And let him decide if he wanted to move forward knowing that. He might have said yes anyway. He might have decided that what mattered was how we felt about each other in the present, not how we'd gotten there. Or he might have said no, might have decided he didn't want to be someone's second choice, might have walked away before we invested 3 years into a relationship built on a foundation I knew was flawed. Either way, he would have had the choice. He would have had all the information. He would have been able to make an informed decision about whether he wanted to be with me. Instead, I hid it. Let him fall in love with a version of me that wasn't entirely honest. Let him propose without knowing the full truth. Let him marry me thinking I'd chosen him when really I'd settled for him. And when he finally discovered the truth, not through honest confession but through a weaponized revelation during a fight, it destroyed everything in one night. The trust, the foundation, the entire relationship. Because how could he trust anything else I'd told him? How could he believe I loved him when I'd admitted I'd only married him because someone else didn't want me? How could he stay with someone who'd kept such a fundamental secret for 3 years and then used it as ammunition in an argument? I keep thinking about that sticky note he left. You should have waited for his answer. At first I thought it was cruel, a final jab designed to hurt me, but now I understand what he meant. I didn't wait. When his boss said no, I immediately moved on to the next option. I didn't take time to process the rejection. I didn't examine what I actually wanted. I didn't consider whether I was ready for a new relationship. I just jumped to David, the safe choice, the available choice, the person who wouldn't reject me. And David deserved better than that. He deserved someone who chose him deliberately, not someone who chose him by default. He deserved someone who wanted him specifically, not someone who wanted anyone who'd say yes. He deserved honesty from the beginning, not secrets that would eventually destroy everything. And I failed to give him any of that. I failed to be honest. I failed to be fully present. I failed to examine my own motivations for being in the relationship. I just coasted along, telling myself I loved him, telling myself I'd made the right choice, telling myself the past didn't matter. But the past did matter. It mattered in every interaction. It shaped every insecurity. It colored every argument. And when it finally came out, it destroyed everything we'd built. I told him I only married him because his boss didn't want me. The next morning, my things were gone. And now I'm sitting in a tiny apartment, alone, trying to understand how I got here. The answer is simple, but accepting it is hard. I valued winning an argument more than I valued my marriage. I valued feeling powerful in that moment more than I valued his feelings. I valued hurting him more than I valued our future together. And when you do that, when you weaponize the truth to win a fight, you lose everything that matters. David loved me, really loved me. He proposed, he married me, he built a life with me. And maybe I loved him too. Maybe I did genuinely fall in love with him over our 3 years together. Maybe what started as settling eventually became real. But it doesn't matter now, because I destroyed any evidence of that love the moment I told him the truth about how we started. I threw it all away to score points during an argument about nothing, an argument I don't even remember the details of anymore, an argument about me being friendly at a work event, something so trivial, so meaningless, and I escalated it into the destruction of my entire life. I told him I settled for him, that he was my backup plan, that I only married him because someone better said no, and he showed me exactly what happens when you tell someone they're not your first choice. They make sure they're not your choice at all. I lost my husband, my home, my life, and my dignity in less than 12 hours. Because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Because I weaponized a truth I should have told years ago, or never at all. Because I wanted to win a fight more than I wanted to protect my marriage. And now I have to live with that. With the knowledge that I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too proud, too angry, too determined to hurt him back for making me feel guilty about behavior I knew was inappropriate. Because here's the truth I've been avoiding. He was right about me flirting. He was right to be insecure. He was right not to trust me completely. Because I wasn't fully committed. I was still proving something, still trying to show that I had value, that men wanted me, that David should feel lucky I chose him. When really, he was the one doing me a favor by loving me despite all my flaws, all my insecurities, all my need for validation, all my secret shame about being rejected. He loved me anyway, and I threw that love back in his face the moment it became convenient to do so. I keep thinking about the way he packed my things, the care he took, the precision. He didn't throw my stuff in garbage bags. He didn't damage anything. He carefully folded my clothes, organized my belongings, made sure I had everything that was mine. Even in his anger, even in his hurt, he was thoughtful, considerate, fair. He calculated our joint finances and took exactly his half, not a penny more. Even though he probably could have justified taking more. He didn't try to hurt me financially. He didn't try to destroy my belongings. He didn't try to humiliate me publicly. He just removed me. Quietly, efficiently, completely. And somehow that hurts more than if he'd raged and screamed. Because it shows how done he was. How final his decision was. How thoroughly I'd destroyed any love he felt for me. There was no anger left, no passion, no fight, just the cold, methodical removal of a problem from his life. And I was the problem. I was the person who'd lied for 3 years, the person who'd kept secrets, the person who'd weaponized those secrets when it served me. I was the person who made him feel like a consolation prize in his own marriage. And now I'm the person who has to live with the consequences. I can't undo what I said. I can't take back those words. I only married you because your boss didn't want me. That sentence will follow me forever. It will shape how I think about relationships, about honesty, about the consequences of using truth as a weapon. And I'll have to live with knowing that I did this to myself. That David didn't leave because he stopped loving me. He left because I showed him I'd never truly loved him the way he deserved. Not as a first choice, not as someone I'd deliberately chosen, but as someone I'd settled for. And now he's gone. Second choices don't get first chances. He was right about that, and I'll spend the rest of my life wishing I'd understood that before it was too late.